Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yeah, it sounds loud. If it's too loud, just let me know. Okay, so just an apology. I'm basically not Miroslav, who was supposedly had to attend this. Unfortunately, he's kind of ill, but he sends his regards, and said all the best in the next season for you, not for us. I will try to explain what he usually does in terms of Google Ads. So just a simple question for starters. Who does Google Ads out of all of you here? Okay. Who is satisfied with the results? Only one? Two of you. Okay. You can leave. Everyone else can stay. Yeah. Okay, so Google Ads, this is a big subject probably, and for most of you it's quite interesting to see what's next and what's up, because whoever does any kind of serious work with Google Ads knows that it's always changing, basically. So if you learn Google Ads 1 year, the next year it's not a completely different tool, but it's let's say it's always changing. It just happens to be let's say an exercise of getting to know. Yeah, please.
Sorry.
No problem. Just getting to know what's changing and what's not. So in the last couple of years, there were, let's say, some major changes that happened with Google Ads as a tool, which everyone needs to know. So it's not only the Google Ads part that's changing, but everything else. The measurement part, the analytics part, the content part, and everything else. So what's happening next, and what we are, let's say, witnessing at this point, is that most of the things that we used to do is now, let's say, almost completely on the machine end of the site. So what we are doing is we have, let's say, not a lot more time, but let's say more time to think about what to do next, and let's say do all of the things that we didn't have time to before. Strategy, planning, competitive analysis, and things like that. The bidding part, the Google Ads part, Google does by itself. So would you agree about it that you felt that Google Ads has, let's say, some kind of a yeah. So that Google is a machine that thinks for you, for, let's say, the repetitive tasks that you have done before, that Google does it by itself now. And you have some additional time, let's say, to sail. Probably not, but we'll take a look for some of the, let's say, tasks and ideas which you can automate and get some free time to do some smarter things. So for starters, let's say, why does it? Come on, work. We'll do it by hand. Okay, for starters, who am I? My name is Zorin, and I will take for let's say, 2 exercises or 2 workshops for Miroslav, which deal with Google Ads. And tomorrow we'll have 2 additional workshops which deal with Google Analytics. I'm the owner of Escape Studio, which is an agency. Let's say we now have about 15 years of history. And inside this history, most of the things that we've done on Google Marketing Platform. So there are 2 basic things that we do. We do Google Ads and Google Analytics. So we spend money on one side, and we measure how this money is spent on the other side. This is what Google Analytics is for. So with Google Ads, we have some, let's say, additional certification, which doesn't say much, but we are a Google Ads Premier Partner, which says basically that we spend a lot of money with Google. One additional thing, we basically spend your money and learn from our mistakes, which is a great thing. We basically take your money, we spend it, and then we see if it works or not. And then we engage with other clients and then don't do the same mistakes again, hopefully. But in this case, what it also means that we have, let's say, a little bit more insight into what Google is planning next. So any kind of a beta feature, new features which come to Google AdWords or to Google Analytics, we have some, let's say, initiative from the Google side to test all of these new features and to see if these can get some additional money back, or let's say can have a much better positive return. So just to put some things into context, what we have been used to and what the current situation is with digital. So I will just, no problem, I will just push some, let's say, simple slides to start with, just to get a context of where we currently are at. So who of you in the charter business does any kind of video production? Okay. What kind of video do you create? Video material. What kind?
We interview guests.
Interview guests. Okay. So this is some kind of a testimonial review, just to make sure that anyone that comes to the site or is reassured that you are offering a good service, probably, and so on. Anyone else? Both videos. Okay. Sorry? Aha, okay, okay. Something else? Could you repeat raw videos? Ah, drone videos. So high up, yes. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, these drone videos which you create. What's the purpose of these videos?
Actually, we did this for one in the beginning, and then we had a lot of friends that loved it, so we start actually a business for other partners. So we did some of the videos, and then it's I think twice it was a part of an Instagram campaign.
Okay. How do you measure the success of these videos?
I have no idea.
Okay. Anyone else has an idea of how to do it?
You upload it on your YouTube channel.
Okay. You upload it there, and then you see YouTube analytics, and then see how many people actually view the video, how many subscribers do you have, and things like that. Is there any other way to measure success? Sorry? Analytics? Okay, okay. Anyone else? There is actually no simple way to measure video. The point of the video depends on why did you create it, or what kind of an audience do you want to engage with. But there are some specific videos currently, or let's say Google Ads features for YouTube, which enable you to actually measure what you mentioned now with Google Analytics. So the newest format for Google Ads and YouTube is YouTube for Action, which is a simple thing that you can use. So create a small, short video which has a clear call to action. So it's not like a YouTube ad, like a simple thing where you can skip or not skip, where you can just view the video and then hopefully someone will remember what to Google for. But there is this YouTube for Action video which now enables you to create a simple call to action. Sale, learn more, buy, get a quote or something like that. Book now, yeah, that can also be one of the things. Now, the most important thing is to remember that video by itself is not a simple sales tool. What will probably not happen is that you will have people like just looking at a video, then you, let's say, impress them, and they will immediately book anything on web. You will probably have to engage in some kind of a romantic relationship with the client, doing the drone videos and everything else, just making sure that everyone is on board. In addition, do the testimonial part of the videos, and so on and so on. So the picture is quite complex. There is a multiple series of videos which you need to take care of in order to get the attention, like awareness things, which is usually done by drones or some inspirational videos. Then you need to reassure the clients which come to the site, the users, visitors who come to the site, that you are not only doing the inspiration part, but also the service part. So the testimonials and everything else definitely work great. And there is one additional thing that you can do, which is more of a utility part of what you are doing, is how to prepare for a charter. What do you need to carry, how to pack, what to expect on a boat, and things like that. So clear boat videos when you come on board, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and so on. So it's not only one part, which is definitely the drone video with nice coast, sea, boats, I don't know, crowds and things like that, but something completely different. Let's say some kind of a example which is not in your industry, which is highly, let's say, out of your industry, but I believe you will get the picture. So we had a client from Germany, that was Nescafe machines, Nespresso, or so these machines were quite popular at the time. So everyone was talking about, okay, what kind of videos can we create to re-engage people to come to the site and have some kind of relationship with them. So it was not about new flavors of the coffee and things like that, which was quite, let's say, obvious, but it was something completely different. And with these machines, one of the most popular things that was on the site, which was used as an acquisition source, was a video of how to clean the machine. So it was a completely utility-driven video which didn't have anything to do with inspiration, promotion, and things like that, but a completely utilitarian part of the service. So we take care of you. You bought something, you did it in the past. We will not push additional products, but we will just help you take care of the product so it can last for a bit longer. So your whole experience would be quite better in this case. So you need to think of all of the stages within the purchase cycle in order to be present in these cases and to, let's say, help the users have a much better experience with the complete, let's say, service, journey, and so on. So it's not only pre-sales, but it's, let's say, during your trip and after the trip, what comes next. How to share the experiences, how to prepare for the next one, what else can you learn, enjoy, and so on. So one of the things that it's quite impressive and important is basically that video is going to take a high share of the traffic of what's all happening on the internet. Because nowadays, it's quite simple to be present with video. But a question for brands and for companies that are engaged with the video is that they are always complicating things. Video is, let's say, costly to produce. You need to have actors, scenarios, and things like that. Then you need to have, let's say, you need to constantly refresh the content. So it's not only creating one video, but probably a series of. Each season has its own, let's say, things which you need to take care of. So it's definitely not as simple as you would think. Now, the additional thing that you can think of is basically using content which you didn't create by yourselves, but using content which the users did for you. It's like user-generated content. And it's basically much more, let's say, user-friendly. Why? Because it's one user talking to many users, and not a company pushing ideas and things in terms of, let's say, just making you buy things. So it's more like one user helping a bunch of users who have, or let's say, hopefully have similar ideas or interests to buying a specific service. So there is one additional thing to mention, why video is much better than probably nowadays than anything else. So just a question, who does any kind of a display advertising, so banner advertising? Yeah, okay. So how do you target with display advertising? What do you target for? Demographics, probably geo, interests, and things like that. Okay. They suck. Currently, they suck. Why? Just let me explain. It's a technical issue, which Google has, which Facebook has, which basically anyone has now, and this is the cookie part. No cookies, no information, much less reliable targeting. So now that you are, let's say, targeting people on display, on GDN, with banners via Google Ads and things like that, you will probably have a much less reliable targeting options than before. Why? Because of GDPR and things like that, cookie walls and things like that, because Google has an issue. They do not like to say it out loud, but the point is they have an issue of stitching users to a persona. So on multiple platforms, people are doing something, but Google and all other ad platforms are now having issues connecting all of these behaviors into one single person. Now, why video and probably Facebook has much bigger success in establishing these kinds of persons, and when you do any kind of audience targeting on YouTube as advertising channel, why is it better? Why is it more reliable in a way?
The person is logged in.
Always logged in, yes. So when you are on Facebook, and when you are on YouTube, these are basically platforms. These are social platforms. And what these platforms are basically built on is the ability to have you always logged in. So when you are on your mobile device, when you are on your desktop device, you are probably always logged in. Listening to a video, viewing a video, doing any kind of communications with your friends, family, and things like that, you are always logged in. So the information collected while in this kind of a session is much more reliable than anything else, because you are explicitly providing information about you, yourself, your interests, your friends, and everything else to these ad platforms. So targeting and everything else is much more reliable. So if targeting is reliable, you can expect one additional thing to happen, and that is that the reach of the audience which you want to reach with your message is probably going to be a bit lower. Why? Because less people are leaving comments and interactions available for targeting on the web. So what you can expect if you get on these platforms is that the reach of the audience is going to be lower, but the quality is probably going to be much, much, much better. All clear? Okay, do YouTube, don't do display. So that's what you have to learn for today. That's probably going to be enough. So the next thing, all of you have websites, probably. And on these websites, the most important thing that can happen is that someone can do a lead, right? Send an email, query, we need a boat, we need a charter, we need something from you for these dates, with these specific, let's say, needs. Size of the boat, number of people, do I need, I don't know, an experienced crew or something like that? But it's a need. Now, the point of all of this is how many of the people, let's say the share of people who actually do this on your sites is probably somewhere around 1% or even less. Is it? Yeah. Okay. So, what's happening? So there is one, let's say, real thing that's happening, and that's the competition part. Okay, you have a service, but probably someone else has a very similar service to you. The difference is type of the site, quality of the site, speed of the site, pricing, pictures, videos, and everything else. So this part is something that you can take care of by yourself. You can change the prices, you can change the web and everything else, but you will always lose a big chunk of the audience who is, let's say, who are coming on your site, and they are probably not going to convert. So is this 1% an accurate number? It's probably not. Why? Because people come to your site, as you mentioned, with Google Analytics, you can measure a part of the success which is happening. So out of, let's say, 100 people, which says in Google Analytics, that's probably like 50 people. Why? Because one person can come to a site with multiple devices, which is then multiplied, and Google Analytics says, okay, it's not 50 people, it's 100 people. But it's not an accurate number. So whenever you are doing anything with Google Analytics, it's not the numbers, it's the trending part. Are you increasing with your results or not? Now, the second thing is that the cycles of purchasing can get quite a bit long. So if I would ask you on average, let's say in May, how much time do people need to decide on purchasing your service?
They can't spend too much time because the higher the season, the more expensive.
When do they start to prepare for that?
A year, at least 6 to 8 months before.
6 to 8 months before. Okay. How long can you track people in these 6 to 8 months? Can you track their entire purchase journey, or is it just... We should be able to, yes. We should be able to, but it's quite difficult. Why? So the first problem is, when someone is researching for this, let's say, long time, so there's always a question of how many devices are in use. So I can track a specific person for, let's say, a couple of months, but it's probably going to be 2 or 3 even individual users, what I see from the tools, but it's probably 1. But the issue is I cannot connect the dots, all of the dots. So some of these users who come to the site, they basically do nothing. They just browse the site. They seem to be quite engaged, but they do not convert. Don't be afraid about it. Don't be discouraged about it. The only thing that you need to measure is basically year-over-year success and see the trending part. So that's the only thing to take care of. The second part, which is, let's say, much more important, is to basically create audiences based on the signal that you, let's say, collect and acquire on the site. So what is the first and foremost thing that a person can do on the site, which we need to track, but it's not the end conversion, the lead? How long they stay on the site. Okay, one thing. What else? What else can we measure? What else do we see as an important...
How many times they click on something?
One additional thing, okay. What in specific? Newsletter is definitely great for user acquisition, for direct communications and everything else. But what's the, let's say, the first and foremost thing that I need to do before doing the lead itself? Fill out the form, any kind of form. Do you have this and this available for this and this date, for this destination, for, let's say you have some kind of a poll on your site where you actually ask the person, what would you like? And then the point is they actually say, I need these specific dates for a specific thing and so on. So the first thing that you need to measure is not the lead itself, but it's the, do I have a specific product which is needed by this specific audience? So let's say Germans are preparing in a specific, let's say, time range. What do we have to offer to them? Do we have all of the boats, all of the destinations covered which they like, types of boats and things like that? And based on this, we can check if our supply is good enough for the market that we advertise to. So that's the first thing we measure. So not the leads, but basically what does the market demand? So this demand market part, and then you have this lead part, which actually can happen 5 or 6 months after the initial research has started. So it's a long journey for just, let's say, 7 to 14 days of vacation. So measure other things and not the conversions, because the conversion cycle is quite long, and the competition part and everything else. That's always a question. One additional thing, there's going to be a lot of additional things, is what has changed in the landscape of how we advertise, where do we advertise, and how can we, let's say, gain the attention of the users who are interested in this specific product or a service. So the point is, reach was scarce before, because you have limited mediums, you have limited airtimes, channels and everything else. Even the TV devices were limited at all. You had one device per probably household. Nowadays, you have so many screens that it's actually hard to count. So the point is you need to be omnipresent. Why? Because multiple, well, let's say, wide variety of people are using the devices in specific times, in specific geography, for specific demographics, and so on and so on. So if you are doing the same thing in, let's say, Germany and in Switzerland, you're probably doing it wrong. Probably, because Switzerland is, let's say, quite a mixed area. Germany is also a mixed area, because you have the northern part, the southern part, which act completely different. You would say these are Germans. No, these are not Germans. Each region, each city, it's basically suburbia versus main metropolitan area is basically quite different in behavior. So when you are doing any kind of reach, awareness and things like that, you probably have to do it a bit differently than you would do it for a whole global, let's say, marketing strategy. So whatever you are doing, you basically need to create some kind of an approach of how to deal with these changing times. Some other things that you need to take care of is basically the additional part of the quality of what you actually offer. So it's not the actual service, so it's not what you are doing on site once a person gets to a boat and does its all vacation thing, but it's in addition something else which happens prior to buying the service itself, or let's say doing a lead. So out of all of you who have any kind of a web presence, so a site, a Facebook page, anything else, who is satisfied with it? Who can say that your web page is a great web page? You. Okay, you can also leave. You. Why? Why is it great? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. To who? Okay. Well, the first thing for a website, it doesn't need to be beautiful. It needs to be functional.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's the first part. Yeah. Before, there were quite ugly sites on the web, but no one really cared because these were the only ones present. So if you want to buy something, buy a specific product, you didn't have options. Nowadays, you have options. So the point is, okay, I'm loading a specific site on mobile, but then there are heavy pictures, videos, texts, styles, and everything else, which reduces the user experience. In what way? You have to wait for the site to load, you have to wait for the results of the search engine, you have to wait. And in this case, time is a commodity which we cannot think that it's easy on the user side to think of them, okay, this user definitely needs this kind of a service, and they have time to ingest the content and to basically wait for this content to load. So these kinds of things do not really work in your case. They work in Amazon case, in things like that. They actually lose money when their site is not loading as expected, but it's slow on loading time and things like that. But in case of Amazon and your sites, there is a big, big difference. Why? Because people who buy on Amazon, usually, let's say on average, they come to Amazon site often. So they preload the site before, so any subsequent session visit to their site is much, much quicker. So there is something called cache, basically. So when you come to the site, the content is cached, part of it at least. So in this case, everything is much, much swifter and everything is really quick. Now in your case, you say your site is beautiful. Is it fast? Okay. What's fast? What does it mean to be fast on the web?
When the tools say that it's in green field.
In green field, like it's
99%.
It's almost impossible. You will probably have to compromise something if you want to be 99%. Now, it's always a question of what's fast enough. It's never going to be fast enough because the users themselves are too hectic. They want the answer much before you can ever do with any kind of technology. The point is you always have to lower this load speed as much as you can to a point that it doesn't become ugly. Yeah, it's functional, but it also has some kind of a feel to it, basically look and feel, I mean, design, colors, images, and everything else. Because if images and videos are the main part, let's say, of your offer, then in this case, you cannot reduce this part. You can compress images, you can compress video and things like that, so the load time would be, let's say, nice. But the point is, you never compromise on quality control and images and things that actually sell. It doesn't make sense. The point is, there are tools, we will discuss them tomorrow, actual tools, which says, are you in green or are you in red? Basically, that should be a pointer of where to do or what to do next. Decreasing the time speed and, let's say, increasing the user experience, what kind of an effect has it on Google Ads? If you decrease the site speed load, does it have any kind of an effect on Google Ads? It does. You will probably pay lower CPCs, cost per click. So in long term, if you decrease the load speed and increase the user experience, there are two main things which will probably happen. The cost per click will probably reduce, and your organic positioning will probably increase. So this is not just a simple thing of, okay, making sure that a user has a, let's say, nice user experience and everything else, but there are much, much bigger gains to have in the long term. So make sure that your load times and everything else and images are quite optimized, compressed and everything else. So make sure you have nice images, but that they are easy to load. In long term, effects are that your organic positioning is going to be much better and your cost per click is going to be lower. Why? Because you are taking care of your user. And Google can recognize this. Not immediately. So these are not quick wins. You can quickly do it, but the end effect is probably going to happen 6 months, 1 year from the point that you have changed something on the site. But don't forget about it. One additional thing is that most of the people that we encounter, some brands and retailers and people like that, companies like that, tend to target younger people. Younger people because they are quite high in volume, they are quite loud, they like to talk about anything, in most cases negatively. But the point is that they usually talk on the internet, they are quite active. The point is, and probably in your business as well, is that there is a much higher demand, or let's say much, bigger buy audience, or let's say people who can actually afford this kind of a service are quite older. Now, when I say older, it means 40, 45, 50, and people like that, because they tend to buy. Their kids are probably off to college, they do not have issues, they like to create issues and solve them eventually, but the point is they can actually afford these things. What we do not need, let's say, need to do, or we should not do it at start, is to disregard some specific demographics, but let the machine, let the market decide on who is the best, let's say, person to offer our services to. And this is where we come to something that it's quite popular now. And this is the machine learning part. Who knows what machine learning is? This is a machine which is learning. Yeah. And inside this learning stage, let's say it acts like a child. It's completely, it doesn't have any kind of a skill at first. It doesn't know how to eat, how to wash dishes after the meal and things like that, but it learns fast. What can we do to make the machine learn faster?
Provide information.
Provide information. How do we do that?
They're looking for themselves already.
Yeah, but in essence, we need to spend more money. So if you spend more money, the machine will probably learn faster. That's basically it. Push more data, more valuable data. So do not do some kind of a global campaign and think that everything is going to be learned by itself. No, you need to have, let's say, a reduced sample. So let's say in Germany, you do just a region, but you push most of your budget to a specific region, and then you can say, I learned most of what Bavaria does in a specific time range. So do not spread your budgets throughout Germany and everything else, because no one here in the room has the money to do all of Germany. Yeah, in total for a year, but basically focus on some specific area where you want to, let's say, research, invest, and get the market presence. You cannot do all of Germany, definitely not for an entire year. No one can. So in short, machine learning finds patterns. This is what you need. We find patterns of what the usual person who is quite, let's say, interested in our service, we let the machine decide who these people are. How does it do it? Let's say we have 10 or 15 people that have done it on the site before, and then the machine says, okay, let's find people who are similar to these users. And then in this case, if you have more and more people who convert, who send leads, then the machine will know eventually what kind of a people, what kind of users do we want to attract, acquire via Google Ads, via Facebook advertising, via any kind of a platform to our sites in order to increase the conversion rates and the volume of, total volume of the conversions. So I believe this is clear enough. We will not go into detail about what machine learning is in Google Ads because it doesn't really matter because we cannot influence how Google Ads does it. The point is the only thing that we can influence is create audiences, first-party audiences, based on what users do on our sites, and the second part is spend more money. Nothing else, absolutely nothing else. If we meddle with keywords, with bidding and everything else, machine learning doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So this is just an example of how users behave. So in this case, I'm really not sure that you over there see anything on the screen, but the point is Gina is a user, had over 850 digital travel touch points over the course of 3 months before purchasing a travel product. So 850. So the point is you are not only researching for a specific service, you are researching for all other things, let's say, connected to it. Where am I going to eat? Where do I put the kids? Where do I park the car? Where do I do anything while on the destination, in the destination? So the point is they are not going to connect only to your service. They are doing a lot more research which is connected to a destination, to the entire trip. Even preparing for the trip, or what am I going to do with the dog who's going to be left at home. But this point is how to manage all of these things together. So the point is, who is listed on Google Maps out of all of you? Yes, you have all of the listings, all of destinations, everything else. Okay, do you do any kind of SEO for Google Maps? Yeah, you do. Anyone else? You do. Any success with it? Okay, so this part is definitely highly recommended. So not only as an organic part, but SEO part and Google part, Google Ads part are highly connected. Because more and more things happen while you search for a specific service which is tied to a specific destination. Then Google Maps and basically Google My Business becomes an integrated part of your Google advertising. Location extensions, location services, any kind of a thing that happens which is tied to a specific destination. Are you aware of the thing that now when you are looking for a destination, let's say you want to travel to a specific part of, let's say, Europe, Portugal, I don't know, Porto. Once you do that, Google now has a completely separate set of tools where you can book air tickets, where you can see the destination, where you can see what to do in these destinations. Basically, Google has become an OTA. Yes. Are you aware of that? And are you aware that they're probably going to do the charter business as well? Yes. Yes, similar to hotels, similar to camping sites, similar to any kind of, let's say, cruise while you are in a specific destination, museum visits and everything else. So Google is probably going to take, yes. And they're probably going to do it for a percentage, like 2-3% or something like that. They do take care of volume. They don't take care of anything else, but they take great care of volume.
Sorry, you said something about NOTA? What is that?
Online travel agency or an operator, or yes. They're already doing that. Why is Google extremely good at it? Because in most cases, they don't like to say it, but in most cases, they know what you are doing. At any specific time, traveling, you are home, you are at work, you are buying something, and so on and so on. So when you buy an airline ticket, whoever has an Android device and whoever has a Gmail account, Google will probably, with Google Assistant, they will say, okay, it's time to book, to check in, it's time to go to the airport and things like that. So they know these things. It's always a question of how they use it or how they can use it. They're allowed to use it, but the point is they're quite a good utility to have. So let's say in case of you travel to a destination, and in this case, you get to a destination, and then it says, why not, let's say, book a one-day trip, book a 3-day trip, go to a museum, do this, do that. So be more as a utility. So in this case, just watch out what's Google doing in your industry and what are the plans of, let's say, eating up your industry and making sure that everything is on their side. Next thing, where does this machine learning apply? Everywhere. So there are less and less humans that are doing the quality checkup of ads and everything else, but the machines are doing it by themselves. So these are the tools where machine learning is quite present. When you type, when you do any kind of a search, Google has a history, and by this history, they are deciding what kind of a person you are, what kind of an interest do you have, and what will you probably do next, what do you need, and things like that.
What do you pay?
What do you pay? Yes, exactly that.
In fact, they can profile you completely.
Yes, yes, but there is one thing to know, is that you can opt out. By default, you are opted in, so they have these personalization preferences and everything else. So they probably know your age, your gender, your interests, what did you do lately on the web, but you can always opt out. Now the question is, do you really want to opt out? I mean, if you're already leaving all this data, let's say, online, so the point is, do you want to have stupid advertising active? In terms of just push global campaigns and everything else to me and see ads which are not relevant to me? Or do you want to have remarketing, advertising, things like that which you can actually use? I don't know. It's 50-50. I mean, you are advertisers, most of you, so the point is your answer should always be, yes, we want to have all of this information present and we want our users to be always opted in. Why? Because if you don't have this kind of information, your GDN, your audience targeting and everything else will just suck more and more. So there is always some kind of a win or lose situation. In this case, we want more wins. Who does ads actively? Who manages campaigns out of all of you? So you do, you do, you do. So a couple of you. Okay. Do you manage all of these things in targeting? Most of it, yeah, probably, yes. Okay, so that's a bad thing now. So Google says that this is the bad thing to do now. The machine should do all of these things, and we should deal with creatives and planning. So keyword bids, so it doesn't mean that you are not going to set keywords, but how much are you willing to pay for a specific click, for a specific keyword, that's a different thing. So let's say I want to pay a maximum of €1 for a specific click. Does it make sense? It doesn't make sense, in a way. Why? Because you don't know who the clicker is. Who is the one behind the PC who is clicking the ad? And this is quite important because for the same keyword, you have two, let's say, for example, you have two people who actually do it. So the first, let's say, first user is someone who is just researching the subject. He didn't do it before. He doesn't have a history with Google or with us. And then there's the other person who already did charters and everything else, but is researching for a destination. So let's say charter boat Croatia, something like that. So two types of people who are in a completely different parts of the purchase cycle. Are you willing to pay more for the one who is more likely to buy or not? Yes, paying €1 or €2 in this case doesn't really matter. It's all relative to the success where you get. So the point is Google can and is doing this actively. So for the same person, he can actually increase the bids by a lot if they see that this person is more likely to purchase. So in your case, when you are doing any kind of targeting, what kind of an audience are you looking for which is likely to buy your service? Do you know of in-market audiences? Yeah? So this is the audience that Google defines as all people who are likely to buy a specific service. So it's not only a keyword, you assign an audience to it. You should talk to your agency, or if you're doing it alone, you should do some kind of additional research on it. So basically, each keyword can have an tied audience which says, I want to bid more on people who are inside this audience. This audience means people who are more likely to buy a specific service. In your case, anything related to boats, sea, cruises, and things like that. Should just pay more for these people because they have shown interest in your service. They do not show interest only by the keyword, but by everything else that I do on the web. And by everything else, let's go back on this. Anything they've done in Google Search, in Gmail, in Google Photos, in Google Trips, and everything else. So they can join these services in a way that they can say, okay, this one is communicating with a friend or a family member in terms of where do we want to, let's say, charter a boat. So they can probably read your emails in a way. If you put something in your Google Calendar, if you do any kind of a Google Assistant search, what do I need to do to prepare for chartering a boat or something like that? Do I need to have a license? Do I need to have, I don't know, any kind of insurance or something like that? Then this person is heavily tied to this in-market audience. So these users are probably already prepared to buy a service. So the point is, campaign management and everything else has become much more simple to do because the campaign structures, the account structures, the number of keywords which you use and everything else is much, much simpler to do. Does anyone who actively leads an ads campaign use negative keywords? You do? Anyone else? Okay. Anyone who is not using negative keywords, do you know that they exist? Yes. Yes? Okay. So there was a rule that, let's say, you have a number of keywords which you advertise for. The number of negative keywords should be about 5 to 10 times more than your advertising keywords. Why? Because you are basically excluding negative context. So let's say charter a boat. So that's a really nice phrase. Charter a boat in Croatia, definitely great. Charter a boat in Croatia, or let's say worst boat charters in Croatia. Bad ones, dirty ones, expensive ones. Any kind of a, let's say, bad attribute, you should exclude all of those from your advertising, because it's probably not a brand thing or let's say a market thing that you want to be visible for these kinds of keywords. So the first thing that, let's say, an agency should do is not cover the ads, the keywords and everything else, but what kind of a negative context does your business want to be excluded for? And it's one additional thing. You want to save money, because negative keywords are probably the biggest money saver in Google Ads accounts. Not the targeting part, not the keyword part, not everything else, but negative keywords which you need to have inside. It's probably, and I say it on average, it's probably going to save you about 25 to 50% of your budget if you get negative keywords right. That's one thing. So don't think about time, don't think about audience types, don't think about devices, locations. That doesn't make sense. Think of negative keywords and think of creatives. Everything else is just a bust. Okay, smart bidding. Who knows about this? What's smart bidding? Smart bidding is a new feature, a new thing from Google, where it says, I will take care of the money you will spend on a specific click based on the signals that I get from the user. Is that user part of a specific audience? At which time, from which device does it search for a specific keyword? So in which context this user is currently at? Which part of the purchase cycle, and so on. So this smart thing is basically, the smart part is the machine learning part. So the better the signals, the higher the conversion count and everything else, it's going to be smarter, smarter, and smarter. Now, the only thing that it currently has issues with is the seasonality of a product or a service. Meaning, then once we get into Black Friday, Cyber Monday thing, which is not quite relevant for you, it could be, but it's probably not at this point, it has some issues with it because these are high anomalies, high changes in trends, in numbers, and everything else. But in your case, it's probably not going to happen. So what's automated inside, let's say, this smart ads strategy? So the first part is bid management. You don't have to take care of the bids themselves. So I want to pay €1 for something or 1.1 euro for another keyword and so on. You do it in a different way. Keyword mining and negatives. So this is automated in a way, but it still needs to be under control. Because Google now can tie a specific keyword, a user, and all of its attributes to a specific context. So if one person is searching for a, let's say, charter boat Croatia, and another is looking for the same thing, but there are two different personas, one is going to be inside the auction, the other one is not. Because Google says this person is not inside the purchase cycle, their context and intent, which is quite important, is quite different. So we don't want to advertise to this person. Writing variations of ad copies. Who does the ad copies for you? The search ads. Do you do it by yourselves or do you have someone else doing it for you? Someone else, okay. Nowadays, you have one ad, which basically can be about 10 million ads inside one. You have these responsive search ads, where you have 3 headlines, you have multiple descriptions, multiple lines of everything else. So when you test something, the previous best practice was to create multiple ads, and then see which one of those ads is performing the best. Now you basically can create one ad and let Google do the testing by itself. So combine the headlines, the descriptions, the logo, the images, and everything else by itself, and Google gives you the best combination for a specific user. You don't have to take care of this. It's always a question if you need to do additional promotions like early booking, late booking, and things like that. You have additional tools to do that. So which are the usual things to promote specific seasonal services? So what do you do in Google Ads to promote specific seasonal services? What tools do you have on your disposal, aside from ads themselves? Do you know what extensions are? Promotion extensions, price extensions, site link extensions, and things like that. Do you know what these are? These are additional things that show up as an ad, which give you more real estate on the search engine results page. And this is the key point. You want to have more real estate inside Google Ads, inside, let's say, Google Maps, and so on and so on. So the more real estate you get on the search engine results page, the higher the likelihood of a click, and furthermore, the conversion would eventually be. And now this part is basically all for you. So the first thing is market analysis. Did anyone do it before? Out of all of you with, let's say, a tool called Keyword Planner? Never? Okay, we'll do that tomorrow. Audiences. Did anyone create first-party audiences, let's say, from Google Analytics and import them to Google Ads? Yes? No? Okay, let's say for an example. Can I create an audience for all of the users who come from Germany, who wanted to rent a boat for at least 8 people in May next year? Can I do this kind of an audience? Can I advertise only to these people? Yes? Yes, we can. We can even do it a bit deeper in a way. Did they come from a mobile device? How many times have they been there before? How many times did they search for a specific product? What specific boats did they search for? So this can all be an audience. A very narrow one, but highly, highly specific one. So what's the question when doing these kind of narrow, small audiences? What's the biggest issue? How am I going to advertise to them? Because if we have, let's say, 1,000 audiences, we probably need to have 1,000 creatives 1,000 ads. So for this part, we do, let's say, Germans, which like to have a big boat. They want to do at least 7 days for a specific destination. So this is only one simple, specific audience. Now, if you have, let's say, Austrians, which like shorter vacation for smaller boats and things like that, so this is one additional set of banners, one additional set of landing pages, one additional set of everything. So you have to be careful about how complex or how deep do you want to get with audiences, because if you create an audience, you probably have to create a set of content and everything else on the site. So keep it simple, basically. May, Germans, that's just fine. You want to do this and that's basically it. Because if you do it a bit more complex, then it's going to be difficult to manage. Nemamo više vremena. No more time, but let's just skip to this. This is the last slide, okay? So, last slide. Get to know what's happening now. So, in case of this, Google has basically 3 main smart bidding strategies on how you want to, let's say, advertise for. So, the first one and the most stupid one is the maximize conversions part. So, you do not have the targeted cost per acquisition or cost per action. You do not have return on ad spend defined. You just want to have as many conversions as possible for a limited budget. So this is maximize conversions. So in this case, this is probably the starting point when you are doing any kind of a new campaign. So do maximize conversions. Limited budget, no idea what the target acquisition is. Target CPA, no, this is definitely a good thing. So if you know how much are you willing to spend for a lead, then just set this number, let's say 100 euros, 200 euros or similar, and just keep it active. If you expect results inside 7 days, you're probably done. Don't do it at all. It will take at least a month for the results to come back. Target ROIS, so this is probably the best one because it's sensitive to revenue. In terms of one charter, you can bill for it, let's say, 10,000 euros. The other one is 1,000 euros. So the profitability of each one of those, it's one charter. Basically, it's one booking, but the point is that the value of each of those is quite different, 10 times. So in this case, I would probably bid on users who are much more, let's say, who are much more like this 10,000 euros public or the audience than the other ones. So this is the ROIS. So this is just an announcement. We'll go much, much deeper the next round. So tomorrow, we'll start at 10. So if you have questions, you'll probably do it tomorrow or later on if you are somewhere nearby. Okay? Thank you.